So now that a literal Al-Qaeda member has taken over Syria, let's remember who predicted this and told the truth about it almost a decade ago now, that our taxpayer dollars in Syria were aiding and abetting terrorist organizations.
They expressed a question. They said, why is it that the United States, its allies and other countries are providing support, are providing arms to terrorist groups like al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, Arar al-Sham, ISIS, who are on the ground there raping, kidnapping, torturing, and killing the Syrian people, children, men, women, people of all ages. They asked me, why is the United States and its allies supporting these terrorist groups who are destroying Syria when it was al-Qaeda who attacked the United States on 9/11, not Syria? I didn't have an answer for them.
Obviously, the United States government denies providing any sort of help to the terrorist groups that you're talking about. They say they provide help for the rebel groups. Tell us more about...
The reality is, Jake, the reality is, and I'm glad you brought up that point, because this is an often talked about thing by people like Adam Kinzinger and others saying, well, we've got to support the moderate rebels. Every place that I went, every person that I spoke to, I asked this question to them. And without hesitation, they said, there are no moderate rebels. Who are these moderate rebels that people keep speaking of? Regardless of the name of these groups, the strongest fighting force on the ground in Syria is al-Nusra or al-Qaeda and ISIS. That is a fact. There's a number of different other groups. All of them essentially are fighting alongside, with, or under the command of the strongest group on the ground that's trying to overthrow Assad. The Syrian people recognize, and they know, that if President Assad is overthrown, then al-Qaeda or a group like al-Qaeda that has been killing Christians, killing people simply because of their religion.
Foretelling the truth about that, Tulsi Gabbard got smeared by Barry Weiss as an Assad toady.
Tulsi Gabbard. Oh, monstrous.
Monstrous?
Ideas.
Well, when she was 22, she had...
No, she's an Assad toady.
What does that mean?
She is
What's a toady?
I think that I used that word correctly. Jamie, can you check what toady means?
I've been falsely labeled and accused hundreds of times for reporting on this story since the 2010s, and it all literally happened. What's so sickening about this is that we were told Al-Qaeda did 9/11 and killed thousands of Americans in 2001. In response to that, we went after Gaddafi in Libya because he wasn't a puppet, left a literal slave trade in the power vacuum there.
He predicted what would happen in Syria to a T. Watch this. They are determined to remove Syria and Lebanon from the map. So that's Israel's borders are with Turkey. Say these words and you will see them achieved.
We went after Bashar al-Assad. And then a couple decades after 9/11, our government essentially helped an Al-Qaeda member take over Syria. You would think that would be like the biggest news story in the world, since going after Al-Qaeda was the biggest deal to Americans for an entire decade. But nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. Democrats are oblivious. Republicans are getting tricked in the same exact way they did during the Bush era, just with Trump now, and they think, well, it's Trump. I mean, we couldn't possibly be tricked the same way. Really? Because I'm seeing the same exact Patriot style call people terrorists while we don't ever go after the people who actually funded terrorists dynamic going on today. You know who's never going to get in trouble on a college campus or never going to get in trouble with the Trump administration? The people who literally funded terror organizations in order to help Al-Qaeda take over Syria. No, Pam Bondi's not really going to look into that. She's too busy with anti-Semitism, of course. Speaking of which, on this college campus situation, people keep saying, even though they're not charging him with a crime, he's a green card holder. He's not a real citizen. He doesn't have the right to protest or lead organizations, etc. Trump's only going after those type of people. Well, actually, that's false. It's already been reported that the Justice Department is looking into if they can apply the exact same thing to students and U.S. citizens under federal domestic terrorism laws. Because once again, the people who actually funded terrorist organizations in the Middle East, they don't get in trouble. They just get awards and raises.
But when it comes to protesters, we got to make sure we treat all of them the same. Send them to jail. Free speech is great, but free speech is not what we need in these universities.
But college protesters, they're the real terrorists now, according to Pam Bondi, who just doesn't seem to be able to release the Epstein files. However, she's gung-ho about policing hate for one race, one religion, and one foreign country that just so would have happened to benefit Jeffrey Epstein and been used as a shield for him if he were around doing what he did now. And as much as people want to act like I don't get what I'm talking about, I actually do. I've read the IHRA anti-Semitism rules that are being passed by Democrats like Chuck Schumer and Republicans into legislation, and it's already been used as a shield for criticism of George Soros. Now, if you share an image of George Soros, even the US State Department will accuse you of anti-Semitism like they did India. When it comes to some of Trump's biggest donors, the Adelson family, which has given more than $500 million to the GOP, you get called an anti-Semite for pointing out or doing basic reporting on lobbying.
You know, Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody outside of people that work there. And they were always after, and as soon as I'd give them something, always for Israel. As soon as I'd give them something, they'd want something else. I'd say, give me a couple of weeks, will you please?
Now, I don't care what you think of Mahmoud Khalil or whether you think he should be deported or not. I really don't. But if you really think the Trump administration is going after the terrorists, you're an idiot. Because, once again, our government and our allies funded rebel groups, aka terrorists, to take over Syria. The guy running it was a member of Al-Qaeda. And if you're an American, especially after 9/11, you should be disgusted by this, not getting tricked and brainwashed by false opposition media.
Free speech is great, but free speech is not what we need in these universities.
In which they're exploiting you, just like George Bush did, into literally doing the opposite of what you think you're doing. Let me know what you think in the comment section. God bless you. Have a beautiful day. I'll be back with more videos.